Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bayou Bets here on bet.NOLA.com, Lundi Gras edition. Hope you are all enjoying the holiday weekend and that you're in line for a fun and happy and safe Mardi Gras tomorrow. I'm Zach Ewing, along with Spencer Urquhart. Jim Derry is today's slacker. He's on vacation. So we're going to take you through the next half hour or so and talk some basketball, talk some NASCAR, some golf, and I even have a baseball rant for you, so get ready for that.
Oh, yeah. Today's the day. Today's deadline day for if they're going to get something done without games getting postponed or canceled.
It is the deadline day, and that is a teaser for my rant. So, hey, came on the air right as I got something stuck in my throat. So,
I'll be ready for that rant. That's going to be.
But yeah, I'm going to clear my throat a little bit, and we'll get ready for that rant. But first, sort of an anti-rant. Hello, Deborah Bates from Las Vegas. How are you today? I hope we have plenty to talk about. I know we have plenty to talk about. And I want to start with something back out toward the direction of Las Vegas, and that would be the Pelicans' performance on their West Coast road trip. Beat the Suns on Friday and just pummeled the Lakers last night. 2-0 on this two-game West Coast road swing. A 28-point victory last night. Spencer, a lot of the national media around this game has centered around the Lakers, and we can talk a little bit about the Lakers and just, I mean, listen, Jim and I were talking about it from the beginning of the season. Fade the Lakers. The Lakers are not as good as people are telling you to be. I don't think anybody thought they would be this bad. And yet they continue to get favored. I mean, as you see, the Pelicans were 2.5-point underdogs here. We can talk about the Lakers. I want to focus on the Pelicans and how good they've looked. And yes, the Suns didn't have Chris Paul. They're not the same team they were a month ago. The Lakers obviously are a train wreck right now. But all of this is playing right into the Pelicans' hands. They really seem to have come out of the All-Star break with a lot of momentum.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think they've kind of, even without Zion, like they're kind of using that as motivation. Like, okay, Zion, if you want to play, cool. If you don't, then we're just going to do it ourselves. And I think a lot of that has to do with the addition of C.J. McCollum. He's really come in and done big things. He's taken over as the lead scorer. And at first, it was like he was doing a little too much. You know, Brandon Ingram wasn't getting his, but lately they've both been getting theirs. Last night was great to see the scoring very evenly distributed. Jonas had a good amount of points too. They're just playing really, really good team basketball, and it showed last night because the Lakers surely weren't there. Like you said, Zach, a total train wreck, man. As a Pels fan, I was really stoked last night. Put a little bit on the Pels money line because I was like, well, the Lakers are so bad right now. I'm just gonna go with the Pels money line. I think they're gonna win heads up, and they not only did that, they blew them out.
Yeah, that's always the best, is when your team wins and you can win a bet on the same game. That's the best of both. Now, the worst thing is when you have both those things riding and it doesn't work out. But that's just how it goes. The Pelicans' schedule coming up, they have Sacramento at home on Wednesday, and that's really a game you have to have if you're the Pels. They're tied for the 10 spot right now with Portland. They're 2.5 games behind the Lakers for the 9 spot. Obviously, the higher you get in that play-in hierarchy, the better chance you have of making the actual playoffs. So that's a game you have to have against Sacramento. Then it gets tougher. They're home for Utah on Friday. Then a little 2-game road trip at Denver, at Memphis, both playoff teams. And then back home for Orlando, for Charlotte, who's struggling, and for Houston, who's struggling. So, some opportunities for wins coming up outside of that one road trip. But at this point, I think you have to handicap the Pelicans' chances of at least making the play-in. It's pretty good.
Oh yeah, I definitely think they'll make the play, and I'm hoping they can actually make the top 8 because I mean the Clippers are kind of vulnerable if they don't get PG and Kawhi back, and who's 7 at the moment? I don't think 7's real strong.
7
either.
Is Minnesota.
Oh yeah, Minnesota. Yeah, I mean they're a young team, kind of like the Pels. I mean, so it's like I think the play-in is very much wide open. The only team that I'd say would be just kind of out of it would be the Lakers. Like I don't see them doing much anything there. But I think out of the Pels, Clippers, and T-Wolves, that's going to be a dogfight for those last 2 spots.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say to that about the Lakers is if they do get healthy, they get AD back. I hate to cost somebody his job, but it almost feels like a situation where a coaching change is necessary. The talent is there for them to come out of that thing. if they get it going. That's a big if at this point. But we've still got 6 weeks until the play-in tournament would start. And so, I think it could be a situation where the Lakers could still be a factor. The Clippers, obviously, if they get Paul George back, maybe they even get Kawhi Leonard back. That seems unlikely. Obviously, it seems unlikely that Zion comes back for the Pelicans. But those are 4 teams where if they were to all get some pieces back, that thing'd be wide open. I mean, you obviously don't want to be the 10 seed and have to win 2 games on the road. That's not very likely. But if you're the 7, 8, or 9, I mean, I think you have a chance at coming out of that thing. And right now, while the Lakers are struggling, the Pelicans ought to make some hay, try to close that deficit, try to get up to the 9 seed. I think that's the goal right now. The Clippers are a little bit further ahead. I think they're a good 5 games ahead of the Pelicans. That one's going to be tough with just 23 games to go. But catching the Lakers absolutely should be the goal right now. Taking a look at some notable NBA results. We've got the Pelicans game on Friday against the Suns, as we mentioned. Clippers and Lakers, that was a big game on Friday as well, and the Clippers came out on top. I got to say, as good of a job as Willie Green is doing in L.A., in New Orleans, you got to look at what Ty Lue is doing in L.A. too. The Clippers are above 500 without Kawhi Leonard the entire season and without Paul George for a good half of it. To me, they're quite similar to the Pelicans in that they're getting by without their stars and causing a lot of people problems.
Oh, yeah, they're a scrappy bunch, and they're also without their new addition from the Blazers, Norman Powell. So they're really short-handed right now. But they just got a quality roster from top to bottom, a lot of good depth. And, yeah, Ty Lue's a quality coach. So, yeah, they're getting it done. I watched some of that game Friday. It was kind of ugly. They almost gave it away to the Lakers, but they're able to hold it down. And the Lakers, after watching them, I've heard people clowning them, but I was like, now I see why after watching them the past couple nights. They just look awful.
The defensive effort's not there. They're making just some ridiculous turnovers. I mean, you look at some of the turnovers they made. The one that's making the rounds is LeBron tries a full court pass and threw it into the 5th row. I mean, it wasn't even close. The guy, I don't even know who he was trying to throw it to. He would have had to be 12 feet tall to even have a chance at that pass. I don't know if it's an effort thing, if they just don't care, if they're tanking because they don't like playing for Frank Vogel, or what the situation is. But I mean, it's like it's not even competitive basketball. So the other game I wanted to point out here was the game that preceded the Pels Lakers last night. That was the Mavericks and Warriors. Warriors had a 20-plus point lead. Yeah, in the third quarter. In fact, I think at the end of the third quarter, they were still up by 18 points or so. And then they only scored 13 points in the fourth quarter. Mavericks came all the way back. It was the Warriors' first loss in 63 games in which they had a 20-point lead at any point. And that sounds like a lot. In the NBA, a 20-point lead, teams lose 20-point leads, I don't want to say routinely, but it's not totally uncommon. It's not unheard of. The Warriors had won 62 straight with a 20-point lead, but lost that game last night.
Yeah, that was a statement for the Mavericks. They were a team I mentioned last week as a potential sleeper team in the West with Luka, and then the new addition, Spencer Dinwiddie, he's good. I mean, he's off the bench, kind of giving them some more depth because they're a team that outside of Luka is kind of lacking secondary scoring options. So yeah, they like I said, I'm not gonna pick them to go to the finals, but I think they're gonna give some people trouble come playoff time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they've matched up with the Clippers each of the past 2 seasons when the Clippers had George and Leonard and were really a powerhouse, and the Mavericks gave them everything they wanted. So you don't want to. I don't think you want to see the Mavericks on the other half of the bracket from you, because that's a tough out. So that's the NBA story. Pelicans back in action again on Wednesday at home against the Kings, looking to keep it rolling. I don't think they'll get back to 500. They would have to go, 25-36? They'd have to go 16-4 the rest of the way for that to happen. I think that's out of reach, but they're going to inch back toward 500, I think, and maybe finish in that 9 or 10 spot and give us something to talk about through April. And speaking of that, March is on the way. Conference tournaments in college basketball start today, actually. I think it's the Northeast Conference gets going today with its conference tournament. So next week will be championship week for all the other conferences, the SEC. SEC women's tournament is this week. LSU got the number 2 seed, big win over Tennessee yesterday. And so things are very exciting there. By the way, Caesar Sportsbook is our official sponsor here on bet.nola.com. And you can still get the LSU women at 40-1 to win the national title at Caesar Sportsbook. I just think they haven't updated the odds because not that many people bet on women's basketball futures before March. But 40-1, I mean, they're number 6 in the country right now.
Yeah, they're rolling. Yeah, it was a great weekend for LSU sports. The baseball and softball teams swept the men's team on Saturday, but to me, yeah, the women's team, that was the biggest story because they beat Tennessee, now the 2 seed in the SEC and a national threat. I mean, could a threat to possibly go all the way. So yeah, big ups to Kim Mulkey and the crew there. They're doing big things.
Yeah, I mean, she came in, everybody had high expectations. But there was also a lot of, listen, give it a couple years. She's not going to change. She's not going to work magic overnight. She worked magic overnight. I mean, that team didn't even make the tournament last year, weren't even particularly close to making the tournament last year. And yes, she added a couple of transfers. I mean, but the core of that team is the same as what it was last year. They're 24-4, 26-4 maybe, and the number 2 seed in the SEC tournament, in line for a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. Especially if they don't, if they suffer an early upset at the SEC, maybe they fall to a number 3 seed. But a team that's certainly going to be seeded to make the Sweet 16 and possibly go farther than that. So big ups to the LSU women and Kim Mulkey. The men's, on the men's side of things, LSU had a big win over Mizzou on Saturday. And Saturday, by the way, was one of the wilder days you will ever see in college basketball. The top 6 teams in the AP poll all lost on the same day. First time that's ever happened. I refrained from calling it upset Saturday. I went with carnage Saturday because they weren't all upsets, as you'll see. Number 3, Auburn was actually a dog to Tennessee. That was one of our daily best bets, picking Tennessee in that game to cover. Number 5, Kansas, they were a dog. And number 6, Kentucky was also an underdog. So it was not all upsets. Some of these you could see coming, but there was also, Gonzaga losing. That was the cherry on top of that Sunday. Arizona loses to a bad Colorado team. That altitude trip gets a lot of teams in the Pac-12 where it's hard to sweep both ends of it, Utah and Colorado. But I don't, I'd ask you if you've ever seen a day like this. Obviously you haven't because it's never happened before. But Spencer, what does it say about the landscape of college basketball right now that the top 6 teams could all lose on the same day?
Oh, it tells me March Madness is going to be wide freaking open. It's going to be one of the wildest March Madnesses in a while. I feel like brackets will be busted early and often. It's true, man. It's going to be nuts. Probably the biggest thing that surprised me out of all these was the Michigan State thing because they had burned me earlier in the week against Iowa. I mean, I watched the game. They didn't even compete against Iowa. I was like, man, this team, I think they're just kind of mailing it in. But shout out to Tom Izzo getting those guys rejuvenated to try to make a run at the tournament because at Purdue had been the best team in the Big Ten, and they go there and knock them off there. I mean, that was wild.
Yeah, and I mean, all of these teams were on the road. I think it's easy to look at something like this and say, this is the craziest season of college basketball ever. It's hard to beat good teams on the road. And like I said, of these 6 games, 3 of them, the top-ranked team was an underdog. And Michigan State was a 4.5-point underdog, so that's not a huge upset at home. The top 2 were really the big surprises. I wouldn't totally overreact to it. I still think the teams at the top of this list are the teams who are going to have the best chance to go in March. But it does go to show you there is nobody invincible in college basketball, and there will be upsets in March. Some of your other results on the weekend, LSU, as mentioned, took care of business against Missouri. That was a fairly close game at halftime. I think a 6-point game at halftime. Then LSU goes on like a 18-0 run to open the second half or something to that effect, and just blew past their fellow Tigers. And so LSU back on track after losing a couple. Duke, by the way, is number 7, and after the top 6 teams lost, they took care of business. And then on Sunday, a surprising result there. Maryland taking care of Ohio State fairly easily.
Right. Yeah. They a lot of there's it's nuts. It's nuts for sure. Yeah, they got some ones here that kind of, I mean, nothing too crazy on this list though, but the Maryland thing is probably the most surprising. LSU, that was obviously much needed for them. and they got it done. 14, that was a big spread, and they covered it fairly easily. And then Duke, Duke is they just keep getting it done. The Coach K's last ride, they're going to be dangerous.
Yeah, no doubt about it. By the way, working on a cool project that I'll post either tonight or tomorrow morning, and it's our bet.NOLA.com betting bracketology. And what that is I'm trying to build a mock bracket like you see at ESPN and you see at CBS Sports and all these other places all have their own mock bracket. Well, ours is going to be built entirely with the odds, the national title odds from Caesars. And so the lowest odds are Gonzaga. They're going to be a 1 seed. Arizona has the second lowest odds, 1 seed. And we'll go on down the list. And the top is not going to be that much different. And obviously teams that aren't going to make the tournament are not going to have very good national title odds, so they're not going to be in there. But you will see some significant changes in the middle of this thing. It's going to be very interesting and I think instructive as to how would you see this tournament if you were purely going on who is the most likely to win it, not necessarily on who deserved it. Like Providence is a perfect example. Providence is number 8 or 9 in the country. Great record, 23-4, something like that. But they're only 80-1 to win the national title. Their KenPom numbers are not very good. They keep winning these games in overtime. They're having a fantastic season. They're not going to win the national title. I feel pretty confident in saying that. And so that's a team that's going to be seated much lower in our bracketology than you'll see in any other, because it's not about who deserves it. We're going based on the odds, who's most likely to win it. So look for that on bet.NOLA.com either tonight or tomorrow. As we move forward here on Bayou Bets, I think, Spencer Urquhart, it may be time for the rant.
That's good. Let's do it.
I think it may be time for the rant. I was just scanning Twitter to look to see if there were any updates about this abomination of negotiation that they are having in Florida. And what I'm speaking of is the lockout between Major League Baseball. I shouldn't say between. Let's be clear here. And this is the start of my rant. Major League Baseball locked out its players. The players had no choice in the matter. Major League Baseball, the owners, locked out the players on December 1st. On December 1st, Rob Manfred, the clown commissioner of baseball, put out a statement saying, hopefully this will jumpstart negotiations and give us a new collective bargaining agreement for the 2022 season and beyond. I'm paraphrasing there, but he did say jumpstart negotiations. That's an exact quote. The next thing that happened in these jump-started negotiations was 43 days later, more than 6 weeks later. We were in freaking February. And I take that back. We were in late January when the owners, when Major League Baseball finally lowered itself to submit an offer to the Players Association. 43 days after they were supposed to jumpstart negotiations. 43 days. And the offer was ludicrous. The offer moved like, we're talking about billion-dollar negotiations. It moved like a couple $1 million. So it moved less than 1% of what they could have moved. Okay? Just an absolutely ridiculous, insulting offer after waiting 6 weeks. So the players, I give the players a lot of credit here. They've stood together. They've said, no, we're not going to give into this. That's the point of having a union, is you have a bunch of money saved up and some resources to help the players get through this if they miss paychecks. Okay, so what's happened since then is the players have said, yes, we'll give you expanded playoffs. The owners want that because it means more TV money and they don't have to pay the players anymore. So the players said, yeah, we'll expand the playoffs to 12 teams. And the owners have come back and said, no, expand it to 14 teams. And the players have said, well, why don't you give us something before we do that? And so the owners have said, okay, well, we'll give you the universal DH. Well, that was already basically written in. The universal DH is going to happen. Okay. So then the players said, we'll let you put ads on the uniforms. That's $150 million in revenue per year to put a few ads on the uniforms like you see soccer players wear or NASCAR drivers wear. Okay. So there's $150 million in revenue. So the players have said, we want our share of that. Give us a little more. Give us a higher collective bargaining tax. Give us a competitive balance tax, CBT, that basically works as a salary cap. Give us a little bit higher so that we can share in some of that new revenue. And the owners have said no. The players have said, allow some of our young players who have to pay, who get like basically league minimum salary for the first few years they're in the league. Give some of the better ones a chance to earn more money faster. And the owners have said no. And the players have said, well, why should we give you what you want if you're not going to give us anything that we want? And the owners have said, well, because we'll cancel the games and you'll miss paychecks if you don't. So this is what I'm saying. And I got into it with somebody on Twitter today. Don't give me both sides on this. Don't give me everybody's greedy on this. Don't give me millionaires versus billionaires on this. It's baseball's owners who are taking the game hostage and threatening to cancel games. In fact, by the end of today, they will have canceled games because they're greedy. That's it. That's it. There's no other reason. You can't call the players greedy in the same breath as you call the owners greedy. The players are looking for their fair share of revenue. Revenue growth has far exceeded what the players are asking for. They're asking for less than natural growth in their salaries, which workers in any industry, by the way, should expect. I don't care if they're millionaires. I don't care. First of all, 40% of Major League Baseball players are not millionaires. 40%, okay? But I don't even care if they are. They should expect what's fair based on the revenue and profit in their industry. And the owners are refusing to give that to them. They've locked them out. They're holding the sport hostage. And I'm a baseball fan, and I'm pissed off. So, Rob Manfred, baseball owners, shame on you. And that's all I have to say.
There you go. Yeah, I feel like you hit the nail on the head there because I've been seeing on Twitter the different players. It's getting them fired up. They're rallied together. It's like a unified thing where a lot of the players, because on MLB.com they took down all the headshots of every player. So now, and it's just like a blank thing with like a gray, just blank face with a cap type thing. And so now a lot of the players put that as their Twitter profile picture, kind of like Unite type thing to show just like the kind of, I think they're more like they're more together as far as they're trying to like at least try to compromise because they want to play. It's not that they don't want to play. It's just the owners are just like you said, Zach, very greedy and just don't really seem to really worry about playing until they get everything they want. And then it's just concerning because they said that once, like if the owners could like lift the lockout and tell the players we could just play on the old CBA, but the players at that point might be so mad they might just go on strike at that point. So, and they honestly couldn't blame them because the owners have just not treated them fairly. So I don't know. Hopefully I think the owners if they miss like a month of games, they'll start to see enough of a hit in their own pockets to where then they'll finally come to some sort of agreement because they're going to lose money too if they lose games.
I don't know how likely this is, and listen, there's like 7 hours left in the day, a little less than 7 hours East Coast time. So they could still come to some miracle agreement. Maybe the owners have been bluffing this entire time, and now that it gets to be a deadline, they'll pass it. It's possible. Just reading between the lines, reading some of the national media reports, I don't think it's very likely, but it's possible. And so I should say that up front. But the other thing I'll say is if they cancel regular season games, because you're right, you're 100% right, Spencer. They could lift the lockout right now and say we're going to start the season on time, March 31st, and we'll play under the old rules. Well, the reason they don't really like that is because they wouldn't get the expanded playoffs, which mean hundreds of millions of more dollars for them in TV money. So that's why the owners don't want to do that. Well, if they ever lift the lockout after a month or something, the players shouldn't agree to expanded playoffs for this season. Screw you. You didn't let us play and collect our paychecks for the first month. Why should we give you expanded playoffs? You get nothing. That's the way I would see it. If I were the players, I wouldn't agree to anything until the owners give in a little bit. So that's my take. I'm very pro players in this situation. I know some people aren't. To me, there are no two sides to this. Leave your comment if you have a take on it in the comment section on YouTube or Facebook. And by the way, here on some of these NOLA.com Facebook and YouTube channels, we've got Mardi Gras coverage coming up, I think at 5:15. So shortly after we're done, we're going to have parade cam for Lundi Gras parades tonight, and then also tomorrow all day on Mardi Gras live parade coverage. So if you don't want to go out and battle the crowds, you can check it out here. This is Bayou Bets, brought to you by the Caesar Sportsbook. I'm Zach Ewing. He's Spencer Urquhart. Couple of other things to get to, Spencer. The golf tournament this week, man, I lost a lot of money when Shane Lowry couldn't hold on to that lead. I thought he came all the way back yesterday at the Honda Classic, had the lead, and I had him at 33-1, and then he blew it, and Sepp Straka, the Austrian, got in and won that thing. And so I was a little disappointed in that yesterday. Good news is there's always another tournament. The Arnold Palmer Invitational is this week, and John Rahm is going to be playing. He's the favorite. Rory McIlroy up there. Scotty Scheffler, some big names. Hideki Matsuyama. Bryson DeChambeau did withdraw from this tournament, still injured. So he was going to come back to defend his title, but he is injured. So those are your API odds for the upcoming tournament. And then also, I know more toward your liking, the NASCAR crazy race yesterday.
Man.
Our man Devin Jackson almost picked the winner. He had Joey Logano at 15-1 and just barely missed. He finished second. But what was your take on the race at Fontana last week?
Oh man, it was nuts. It was nuts. It was just a total chaos with too many tire failures. NASCAR is gonna have to address that so they don't have so many tire failures. I mean, my favorite to win, Kyle Busch. I mean, he didn't even get a fair shake because 10 laps in, he had a tire go down, and then it just set him back to where he miraculously got back on the lead lap. I don't know how. I guess he is really talented, but just, I mean, he didn't really. I mean, it's just when you shouldn't be having tire failures that early in the race, and it just continued throughout the day. So hopefully they can get that, because the racing itself was really fun. Like, it was a lot of passing, a lot of back and forth action, really thrilling finish. So as the racing itself was good, but very good. They just got to get these tires right.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing about betting on NASCAR for me is, listen, there's things beyond your control in any sport. The weather is a big one. And sometimes you just can't control bad bounces or whatever. There's just more of them in NASCAR. There's so many things you can't predict. And that's what makes it so difficult to bet on that sport for me. But there are no odds quite yet. They're in Las Vegas this weekend. Give us a couple of early leans as far as a favorite and maybe a dark horse in that race in Vegas.
For sure. Yeah, I think the Kyle Larson, he was the favorite one this week. I think he'll once again be the favorite at Vegas. I think he won that race last year, so he'll definitely be up there again. And a dark horse, shoot, I guess I'll go with Tyler Reddick, man. He's due for a good race. He's been up front every week so far, just always seemed to have bad luck. But his cars, they've got speed with that team. Richard Childress Racing has gotten back to their old selves as far as being one of the top teams speed wise. So I think Reddick could possibly get it done.
Absolutely. And so that's coming up this weekend, a couple of big events in NASCAR and golf, and we will keep betting all week long with our daily best bets. You can check those out on bet.nola.com. Here's how we've done pretty well in the last week after we were real bad there for about 2 weeks, and we're back on track now, about back to 500 for the year, pretty close to it. Had a couple of player props work out. CJ McCollum over 22.5 points against the Suns. Got lucky on that Spurs -3 in double overtime. So it's nice when those things work out for you. And then a couple that didn't work out. Devin, I believe, picked Memphis over Wichita State yesterday. That was an easy win. A couple I couldn't fit on here were y'all's NASCAR picks. And again, Kyle Busch, I think I read somewhere where he made the most green flag passes in the entire field yesterday. It's just, as you said, he started from so far back, he had no chance. And then Devin picked Joey Logano, who ended up finishing second. So close, but no cigar on those. Still over $60 for the week in profit. And that leads us into a new week. And Spencer, your picks for tonight.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully we can start off hot tonight. For the top bet, I've got the Raptors over the Nets there. I feel really good about that because the Nets, they're going to have no Kyrie, no KD, no Ben Simmons. They're going to have no alpha scorer. I mean, it's going to be a bunch of role players out there. And the Raptors have plenty of depth, and their star Pascal Siakam will be out there. So yeah, I see them going into Brooklyn and winning by double digits probably, because I mean the Nets, if it's crazy with the Kyrie situation, you want to play the Nets, you want to travel to Brooklyn. Yeah, you want to play them in their place, because without Kyrie, they're not nearly as good, especially without KD, who should be back soon. But it's kind of, I don't know, they might have a minutes restriction and all that. So anyway, the next one, North Carolina and Syracuse. I like UNC to continue their hot streak. They've been playing well. Syracuse not playing so well. And North Carolina is a team that, they're not quite as good as they normally are, but they seem to always come around at this time of year, March about to start. So yeah, I feel like they'll keep it up. And then the player prop parlay with DeMar DeRozan and De'Aaron Fox chasing the hot hand here. I mean, they're going to fall off at some point, but I think they're going to keep it going here tonight. DeRozan scored over 30 in his past 10 games. Fox has scored over 25 in every game but one since his return from an injury that he suffered in January. So hopefully they can keep it going here and have another nice day of best bets.
Yeah, you got some line movement on your side because as you see in the corner there, these are odds as of Sunday when you wrote this last night. And the Raptors have moved up to -4. North Carolina, I believe last I saw was 8.5-point favorite now. So the line movement is in your favor here. Hopefully you hopped on these things as soon as Spencer posted them last night. If not, it sounds like you clearly still like the Raptors at -4 because you like them big. And so even that extra 1.5 won't scare you off. So tail us on the best bets. Follow us on social media, Bet NOLA on Twitter or Facebook, and you can get alerts for when these things are posted and get on them quickly. That's Spencer the Guru. Spencer, any final thoughts for the week ahead here?
Shoot, let me think here. Yeah, I guess just it was more basketball. We got basketball aplenty. Gonna be keeping up with all that. Hopefully baseball owners can get their heads out their butts, and hopefully the Saints can keep having a decent offseason. We'll have free agency coming up here soon, and looks like Jameis is back running. So hopefully they'll be able to get something done with him. And yeah, so I have a lot going on. Another thing I had to add in about baseball, the owners can't be this stupid. The way they're going, the NFL – literally, NFL free agency hadn't even started yet, and they're already getting like more buzz around that than baseball because there's nothing really going on with baseball other than this pissing match between the owners and players, which is the owners have, like we said, have been the front of it, so they better watch it.
Yeah, it just seems like they don't care. That's the only answer I can come up with, and I've said my piece. I won't say anymore. I do want to show this comment to Tom. Do you know a Tom Urquhart in Baltimore?
Oh, I don't think. Well, shout out to Tom. Yeah.
All right.
Maybe we're distant relatives.
Tom says, enjoy Mardi Gras. I hope everyone does enjoy Mardi Gras. I'm going to be scarce for the next 3 weeks. I've got a little European trip planned. My brother's getting married, and so I will be out. I'm going to go see a couple of English soccer games on the way. And so it's going to be kind of an adventure. I will be back. Actually, March 24th, I think, will be my first show back for At the Book. So it will be into March Madness by then. In fact, we'll be into the Sweet 16 by then. So I hope everyone enjoys the games, enjoys the bets, bet responsibly, and feel free to reach out. Spencer will be around. Jim Derry will be back for At the Book on Thursday. That's at 4 p.m. And until then, this has been Bayou Bets on Bet.NOLA.com. Happy Mardi Gras, everybody.